Hi, everybody. Joe Cioffi here. Weather in 5 days in 5 minutes on what is a nice weather afternoon across the eastern part of the United States. And as we take a look at a refreshed satellite loop, so we have it up to date. You see, except for this little disturbance that's moving across northern New York and northern New England, it is basically partly to mostly sunny from central New England all the way down into northern Florida and west across the Gulf states through Mississippi and into Louisiana. We're seeing moisture, what's left of tropical storm Norma, moving through Texas and into Oklahoma and Kansas with some heavy rains. And you see a stream of moisture, little comma-shaped swirl here off the coast of California and Oregon. That is the storm system that's going to produce the first important snowfall for the Pacific Northwest and the northern Rockies, and eventually on up into the northern plains. On the lower right, we have Hurricane Tammy, and that's moving northward toward Bermuda. The hurricane is actually preventing the ridge, the upper high and the surface high that is off the east coast. It's keeping it from moving out. So while it holds this in place, and Tammy is not going to be recurving out into the ocean, it's just going to continue to move slowly northward. So until it gets out of the way, that high can't get out of the way, and all this weather that is back here can't move eastward. So that's going to keep things dry through Saturday, I think. It may not be until late on Sunday that we'll have an approaching cold front and the chance that there might be some showers with that front. It's not a big chance, but there is a possibility that we could see some showers late in the day on Sunday. But I think Saturday is going to be good, and maybe much of Sunday could wind up being dry. And of course, with this big high just sitting here, the air warms up. So we've got a warm pattern for the eastern part of the United States. I've noticed a few of people commenting on the fact that uh, where's fall. This is autumn, where we still get these fluctuations between colder air masses that are trying to start to come down out of Canada, and what's left of the warm summer air, the summer patterns that are just hanging on for dear life, essentially. Until we get deeper into November and December when they should all but disappear. As far as rain is concerned today, it is on the quiet side as we look at the radars. There are some blips on the radar showing up in the Hudson Valley and back up into the Catskills. I don't know that any of that is actually reaching the ground, so I'm not really concerned about it. There's some showers up in coastal Maine. Then as we move to the west, here's where we have some severe weather going on from southeastern Minnesota across northern Wisconsin and into northern Michigan. We've seen a few severe thunderstorm warnings there being produced. And of course, you see the rain areas in north central Texas, Oklahoma, and into Kansas. Some of this is on the heavy side, and that continues to move on up to the northeast. And here's the system coming into the Pacific Northwest that's going to spread the moisture eastward into the northern Rockies and northern plains. And at the same time, we've got a cold high that's building down from southwestern Canada that is going to be producing snow. And the weather prediction, folks, this is the probability of at least four from this storm system, and this carries us into Friday morning. And we're seeing in the red, that's a 95 to 100% probability for at least four. In general, from a forecasting standpoint, I use the 50% line as the boundary, and the 50% line is in that first shade of light, not the darkest blue, but the next shade down. So if you follow that along, there's a pretty good probability, higher than 50%, that the areas that are in that lighter blue are going to see 4 inches. So this is a fairly widespread snowfall for this time of year, and also seeing some heavy snows in the mountains of Washington and parts of Oregon on the order of 4 inches or more. And if you want to look at a foot or more, the probabilities are also 50% or higher in parts of central Montana, northwestern Wyoming, also in parts of eastern Montana, and into the northwestern part of North Dakota. There's a 50% or higher chance for at least a foot. And when we look at the actual snowfall accumulations that are being forecast, you see some 12-inch amounts there in the Dakotas and through Montana down into northwest Wyoming, also in the mountains to the east of Seattle, for example, in Washington and east of Portland, where you're seeing 1 foot plus snows relatively common there. We don't have that to worry about, of course, in terms of rainfall for the next 7 days. Very little. The lightest green is a tenth of an inch or less, and where it's just white, that's no rain. So much of southern New England down to northern Florida and west to southeast Louisiana, no rain is forecast for the next 7 days. We are seeing some substantial rains being indicated from north central Texas on up into Missouri, southeastern Kansas, on the order of several inches or more in some places. Again, this is cumulative over the next week. The thunderstorms are producing heavy rains across southeastern Minnesota and through Wisconsin and on up into northern Michigan. The snow areas, 3/4 of an inch to an inch and a half of liquid precipitation, and we showed you what that translates to in snow amounts for the northern plains and the northern Rockies and on up into the Pacific Northwest. So as far as the weather over the next couple of days in the east is concerned, Tammy is holding back the high from moving out. So instead, we're just going to enjoy sunshine for the rest of today, tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And of course, temperatures are going to be rising some each day. We will reach upper 60s to lower 70s on Wednesday. We will be into the 70s Thursday, mid to upper 70s, maybe even an 80-degree reading shows up in some places on Friday, and the same for Saturday. Saturday, we're just going to have to watch to see if there's any clouds around. It's quite possible we might get a little bit of cloud cover moving in, but I think Saturday should certainly be no worse than partly sunny, if not mostly sunny. And then here comes the next cold front, and you see it weakens as it moves into the northeast Saturday night. And then on Sunday, a wave develops on it, and that's where we might see some showers coming in later Sunday afternoon and evening. We'll have to see on that because this does not really look all that impressive. And eventually that front does come through on next Monday, and behind that is a shot of colder air. And this is a bit more of a robust colder air mass with this high coming down from Canada into North Dakota and across the Great Lakes. So I think from this, we may see more widespread frosts and freezes in the Northeast and northern mid-Atlantic states, especially in the inland areas. I don't know about the coast, but for the inland areas, I think we could wind up seeing our first freezes there. And then just backing up, you see what happens up in the Northwest as this low comes in Tuesday night into Washington and Oregon, and then quickly redevelops in Wyoming. And from that, we get this snow area that spreads across Montana and into the Dakotas. Eventually, a stronger low does come out Thursday night and Friday and produces some heavier snows in eastern North Dakota and Minnesota. But that low goes up to Lake Superior and passes well to our north and leaves behind a colder air mass for the weekend with some snow in the central Rockies and into the central plains. And then that rain area moves on to the east. So that pretty much sums everything up as far as what's going on right now. And tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, we're going to be talking about all of this. The first snowstorm up in the northwest and northern Rockies and plains, and the nice weather, the nice fall weather that we have in the eastern part of the United States. And that's at 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. Just a heads up, tomorrow night, we're going to start to have some special guests on that are going to be talking about the upcoming winter. Dave Tolleris of Weather Risk will be joining us tomorrow night, and possibly Bill Goodman from the National Weather Service office in Upton, New York. And as we move through the rest of the week and maybe next week, we'll probably have other guests on as well to give us their opinions on what the winter is going to be like, or their predictions of what they think the winter is going to be like. So that's tonight, starting tonight on the Joe and Joe Weather Show, 7:35 p.m. Eastern Time. So we'll see you then.